Good afternoon and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mara. Here we are on day 218 of 2024, and I'm continuing the story of the water lily and the prince. What an adventure. Now, the prince with his beloved by his side are seated next to the woodcutter, driving the wagon to his home, where he intends, at least he says, to unload wood and then take them to the prince's kingdom. The woodcutter says he knows the way. They arrive at the woodcutter's house, and his kids come running out, as well as his wife, to see these new visitors that have arrived. Now, the prince and his beloved have no idea how many days have passed. They think it's just a mere amount of hours, and the prince's horse had run off or been taken away. Now, news does not travel fast, or at least it did not back in those days. Messages had to be delivered by hand or spoken, unless one knew the language of the birds. The woodcutter's wife, of course, invited them in. They had some tea to drink, and she presented with some cakes that she had made, and the kids clamored around to see these two young people in their midst. In the meantime, the woodcutter did exactly as he said he would do, unloading the wood back into his woodshed. And then, when all had been taken care of, he beckoned the two young lovers into the wagon so he could take them to the palace. Now, as you might imagine, his children wanted to go. And when he said yes to them, he could certainly not deny his wife. And so soon, all of them had piled into the wagon and were now making their way through the woods. This wagon drawn by two beautiful black horses. Now, during these days that had passed, the prince's father and mother, the king and queen, had assumed, as parents might or would, that the worst had befallen the prince, that he was dead. The horse had made its way home, riderless, and it just so happened that that day they were in church, sobbing and praying for his welfare in the other world. They arrived at the palace. The palace guards, of course, welcomed them in. The woodcutter and his wife and children were brought into the royal stables. His horses were unhitched from the wagon and brought into the royal stable. And one of the chancellors of the king immediately took the two young people to the church, while some servants of the king and queen then brought the woodcutter and his wife in and had them taken care of in the best of fashion, knowing that the king and queen would like to reward them as best they could for bringing their son back. You can imagine the delight of the king and the queen as the prince came walking into the church with this beautiful maiden by his side. For a time they stood there in the church, the prince describing what had taken place, introductions being made, before the queen, of course, said, well, we will have to prepare for the wedding immediately. And we'll stop the story there. see, is this going to happen easily? Or would there be some wicked intervention again of that witch who is still alive?